Martha's fingers brushed dust off an old field notebook wedged behind her spice rack. Faded sketches of sparrows, dates smudged by rain. 57 years old, 3 months since retirement, and suddenly she's nose to page with her younger self, woman who tracked starlings like they held secrets. Outside, Seattle drizzle grayed sidewalks, but that notebook? Pure wildfire. Next morning, she marched past Pike Place's fish-tossing theatrics, armed with binoculars and a jittery hope. Urban bird collective meetups weren't therapy. Martha's fingers brushed dust off an old field notebook, its cracked leather spine whispering of decades spent cataloging wildflowers with her late husband. Now, Seattle's unseasonable rains drummed against her apartment window, each drop a tiny echo of climate reports that left her stomach knotted. She'd started avoiding headlines like expired milk, souring everything it touched. Pike Place Market's weekend birdwatching meetup had seemed a flimsy bandage for eco-grief, but Martha showed up anyway, binoculars dangling like awkward jewelry. Her first attempt logging urban hawks ended with a clumsy step into a puddle, but Collective's laughter was warm, not mocking. These women, retired teachers, baristas, a punk rock grandma, tracked sparrows like stock tickers, their field notebooks stitching together a mosaic of resilience. Her deepest fear had always been becoming irrelevant, a ghost in her own life like those faded wildflower sketches. But here, scribbling notes on a juvenile eagle's flight pattern, she caught a glimmer of purpose sharper than coffee scent clinging to her gloves. Age had sanded down her knees, not her curiosity. By spring, Martha's notebook bulged with sightings. Cormorants diving where fairies once ruled, a stubborn owl family nesting in a parking garage. Groups data even nudged city planners to preserve a scrubby greenbelt. Turns out, bearing witness wasn't passive. It was a quiet rebellion. She grinned, tucking a pressed maple leaf between pages. Some roots held fast even in concrete. Martha's fingers brushed dust off an old field notebook, its cracked leather spine whispering of decades untouched. Retirement had left her adrift, headlines about melting glaciers gnawing her sleep. But that morning, a flash of movement outside her kitchen window. A Stellar's J, electric blue against Seattle's gray, jolted something loose. She fumbled with binoculars, knocking over a coffee mug in her haste. 57, woman figured she was allowed a few klutzy moments. Scribbling shaky notes on Jay's crest, she missed half its markings but caught giddy thrill of discovery. That afternoon, she wandered Pike Place Market, drawn to a folding table where a woman in a rain-flecked anorak was demonstrating bird call apps. "Join us," woman said, sliding a flyer across table. Urban Bird Collective. No expertise, just good vibes. Martha's first meetup was chaos. She mistook a crow's shadow for a raptor, earning chuckles from group. But their leader, a retired biology teacher named Rosa with a knack for spotting warblers in parking lots, handed her a fresh notebook. "This'll be your anchor," Rosa said. "Not just for birds. For you." Week by week, Martha's pages filled. Not just with species counts, but with observations that surprised her. How flickers nested in oddest nooks of skyscrapers. How her heartbeat steadied when tracking a hummingbird's zigzag flight. One rainy Thursday, she slipped on wet pavement chasing a rare grosbeak report, landing in a puddle with a squelch. Group howled. She joined in, wiping mud from her knees. Age hadn't stolen her laughter, just buried it under layers of worry. By summer, her notebook bore coffee stains, smudged ink, and a quiet truth. Grief for a warming planet could coexist with joy for its stubborn, feathery survivors. Pike Place, tourists now paused to ask what she was jotting down. Martha would smile, tucking gray hair behind her ear. "Evidence," she'd say. "Evidence of life, of purpose, of small, winged rebellions against despair." Martha's fingers brushed dust off an old field notebook, its cracked spine whispering of abandoned ambitions. 57 years of living, and she'd never stuck with anything longer than sourdough starter. But climate dread had a way of gnawing a person, like those crows outside her window, relentless with their judgment. Seattle's gray skies mirrored her mood, but Pike Place Market's bustle offered distraction. Between fish tossers and flower vendors, she spotted them. A gaggle of women clustered near gum wall, binoculars slung like jewelry. Urban Bird Collective's vibes were equal parts science nerds and rebellious grandmas. Martha hovered, pretending to examine a particularly artistic wad of chewing gum until someone thrust a checklist into her hands. First rule, leader grinned. No fake birding. Missteps came easy. She logged a crow as a raven, confused sparrows for finches, once nearly face-planted chasing a flicker down an alley. Notebook entries grew messy with crossouts, but so did her laughter lines. Mornings once lost to doom-scrolling became expeditions, tracking ospreys along Duwamish, noting how cedar waxwings mobbed berry bushes with same urgency as her group swarmed coffee carts after. Doubt still crept in. Some nights, data sheets felt like shouting into a hurricane. But then she'd remember barred owl nesting near her building, its presence steady as her own stubborn push to keep showing up. That notebook, once a relic, now held proof. Not of saving world, but of paying attention. By solstice, Martha's scribbles had morphed into something unexpected. A map of small wonders. Climate grief hadn't vanished, but it had company. Turns out, purpose wasn't some grand finale. It was a stubborn chickadee singing anyway. Martha's fingers brushed dust off an old field notebook, its pages yellowed but eager. Outside her window, a sparrow tapped glass. Tiny rebel, demanding attention. She smirked, 57 years young, and here she was, taking cues from birds. Pike Place Market buzzed below, but she wasn't hunting artisan cheeses today. Clutching her notebook like a shield, she marched toward a gaggle of skeptics gathered near Gum Wall. Urban Birdwatching Collective, she announced, voice steadier than her knees. A man in a Seahawks cap snorted. What's next, squirrel therapy? She flipped open her notebook, revealing years of scribbles. Red-winged blackbirds by canal, a peregrine falcon nesting atop a skyscraper, even a wayward puffin once. Okay, maybe that was a seagull with flair. Proof, she said, tapping a page smudged with rain and resolve. Every bird's a tiny rebellion against despair. Then her gutsy move. Creator pulled out her phone, showed a blurry shot of a barred owl glaring from a parking meter. Went viral. Even got tagged by some big-shot ecologist. Crowd leaned in. Seahawks cap scoff melted into a slow nod. By sunset, 20 strangers scribbled in fresh notebooks, eyes bright as Creator taught them to track crows' gossipy routes. One woman whispered, "This is my start too." Back home, Martha added today's sightings to her notebook. Not just birds, but names, laughter, that electric hum of purpose. She grinned. Who knew eco-grief could crumble under weight of a sparrow's sass? Martha's field notebook, once a relic of abandoned dreams, now bulged with scribbled observations, each page proof that purpose could bloom like stubborn dandelions through sidewalk cracks. 57. She'd traded sleepless nights fretting over melting glaciers for pre-dawn adventures tracking sparrows in parking lots, her binoculars dangling beside a thermos of Earl Grey, always oversteeped. Corks die hard. What began as solo grief therapy became Seattle Urban Bird Collective, a ragtag crew of retirees, baristas, and one skeptical teen who'd only come for free donuts. Spoiler. He now IDs warblers by ear. Pike Place Market became their unlikely HQ, where Martha taught newcomers to spot iridescent starlings nesting behind neon signs. Cities are ecosystems too, she'd say, guiding shaky hands to adjust lenses. Her notebook evolved, not just species tallies, but stories. Linda from yarn shop linking feather patterns to knitting stitches. A group gasped when a wayward osprey dive-bombed fishmonger's stall. Laughter cut through eco-dread like spring sun. 3 winters later, their data helped restore a wetland. Martha grinned as mayor's aides cited her graphs in policy meetings. Yet victory tasted sweetest watching Margie, 82 and freshly widowed, beam while logging her first hummingbird sighting. "Still got it?" Margie whispered, flexing her pen like a sword. "Here's kicker. You don't need expertise, just curiosity and a willingness to squint pigeons like they're rare art." Martha's crew proves action isn't about saving whole world today. It's about showing up, messy-haired and hopeful, to chronicle your corner of it. Scrawl your wonder, Earth's counting on your stubborn joy.